The wild contrast in mood and momentum between two campaigns. The pictures tell the story. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden holding a raucous campaign event with a fired-up crowd. Hours later, Donald Trump holding a solo press conference amid criticism from his own allies that he's sputtering and flailing on the campaign trail. Biden and Harris appearing in Maryland, their first joint event since Biden dropped out. It was billed as a White House event about Medicare and prescription drug prices, which might sound kind of dry, but the energy was high. Here was the long line outside in the middle of a Thursday afternoon, and trust me, I know Largo, Maryland, that is hard to get there by traffic. Harris and Biden literally embracing each other on stage. The crowd was also feeling the love.
And today we take the next step, thank you, Joe, forward in our fight.
Biden and Harris both shouting each other out.
It is my eternal and great, great, great honor, I have to tell you, to serve with this most extraordinary human being.
Thank you, Kamala.
I could speak all afternoon about the person that I am standing on this stage with.
Folks, I have an incredible partner. The progress we've made, she's going to make one hell of a president.
An American and leader, our President, Joe Biden.
It is truly a love fest. The Harris campaign also going on offense with a new ad blitz, spending $90 million in battleground states. But here's the thing. The ads will also hit voters in markets that, quote, former President Trump's campaign is targeting, like Toledo, Ohio, and Youngstown, Ohio. It suggests the Harris campaign sees an expanding electoral map, forcing Trump to play defense in Ohio, which really hasn't been a swing state in 5 cycles. Democrats are not alone in seeing Trump's weaknesses. MAGA allies and other conservatives basically trying to stage a public intervention, openly pleading for the campaign to reset. But Donald Trump isn't listening.
I want this campaign to win, but the campaign is not going to win talking about crowd sizes.
I think he and the Republican Party would be well served to focus on the policy contrasts.
It's not going to win talking about what race Kamala Harris is.
It's going to be a race, and you've got to make this race not on personalities. Mm-hmm. Stop questioning the size of her crowds.
He's lost control. He's committing political suicide.
It's not going to win talking about whether she's dumb. It's not, you can't win on those things.
So stupid. Just focus on the damn borders.
And today, a sign the Trump campaign knows it's trending in the wrong direction. A campaign shakeup, hiring 5 new staffers, including its controversial 2016 campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, who, I remind you, was fired in 2021 for sexually harassing a Republican donor's wife and was arrested in 2016 for grabbing and bruising the arm of a female journalist. That's the state of play with just 81 days before November 5th. Joining me now to discuss is Molly Jong-Fast, special correspondent for Vanity Fair and MSNBC political analyst, and Alencia Johnson, Democratic strategist and former senior advisor to the Biden-Harris 2020 campaign. Molly Jong-Fast, I'll start with you because I think this was one of the things about the Trump campaign in 2016 and 2020 that I always thought was indicative of who this man was. The rehiring Corey Lewandowski is not just a sign that the campaign is desperate, but a man with a marked history of abuse of women. What does that tell you about how desperate or how tone deaf the Trump campaign is in 2024?
Well, I never understand why they don't want to reach out to women and why they want to go double down on this, right? Because they had this opportunity, right? I mean, we saw Nikki Haley. They could have at least pretended to want to win those votes. And it's like at every point they're like, no, we don't want those voters. I mean, We are like more than half of the population. And I just think it's sort of shocking to me. But when you look at those clips, what I'm struck by is all these people who just want Trump to not be Trump. The whole thing about Trump is Trump can only be Trump. Right? There's no other Trump. There's no more focused Trump. They had that, they had other candidates doing sort of Trumpism without Trump, and they rejected them all. So this is the Trump you're stuck with. And the fantasy that you could get some other more disciplined, more organized Trump, that's not how any of this works.
Alicia, I want to ask you, and I pointed this out earlier. You and I both know the D.C. metro area. Getting that many people into Largo, Maryland in the middle of the afternoon to talk about health care, that is a sign. That is a sign of enthusiasm in the campaign. But more importantly, to see Vice President Harris and Joe Biden shouting each other out, supporting each other, happy together. What does that do for the Democratic Party heading into the convention? I mean, we're still living this unprecedented time of Joe Biden dropping out just 3 weeks ago, and he is shouting out the woman who may one day replace him. What does that tell voters?
I mean, you saw these voters and people who support both President Biden and Vice President Harris in the middle of traffic, beltway traffic, the worst in the nation, and long lines. And the reality is what this is showing folks is that there's a unifying message here that she is going to continue the Biden-Harris administration's achievements and priorities. And it lays this up in that if you not only elect her as president, but give her a Senate and give her a House, look what else that we can do. I also appreciate this rally today because as we've been discussing for weeks before she became the nominee, there were a lot of party leaders that were trying to push President Biden out. However, Vice President Harris has stuck beside his side, and she continues to be a partner with him and showing this unity, showing that, hey, we are a team. I don't care what else the party leadership was talking about. We are continuing to be a team, and we have a legacy to protect and to continue, and that will be with her as president. The other contrast and what we see on the other side is President Trump doesn't have any former Republican presidents out here campaigning with him, nor his former vice president. That is a stark contrast among anything else. And while you have Nikki Haley and folks and Kevin McCarthy talking about how he should change his course, we know Donald Trump is not going to do that. He hasn't done it in 2015, and he's not going to do it in 2024.
You know, it is interesting to see all that kind of day one energy between Harris and Biden, and it's a level of loyalty that Trump hasn't been able to garner in 8 years. Molly, I want to ask you about this because I think this is key. When we're talking about why this campaign has flipped, I want to play you some sound from Kellyanne Conway, where I don't think she did what she thought she was doing. I don't want to get your thoughts on the other side.
Everybody's making her whatever they need her to be. She's so good looking. She's so smart. She's so wealthy. She's so funny. She's close to her mom. She goes on really cool vacations. She'll never break your heart.
I'm sorry, I think she was trying to do something there. I think she just sold me on Harris. What do you make of the fact that Republicans are having trouble because they seem to think Kamala Harris is kind of cool too?
Yeah. I mean, that was an amazing little bit of tape right there. And I do think, look, you know, anyone who has covered the Democrat, especially the Biden administration, knows they've had a lot of trouble messaging. They've had a lot of policies, and a lot of these policies the mainstream media has not been interested in covering. For example, even to that event today was lowering these 6 very popular prescription drugs down. And that was part of the Inflation Reduction Act, which every Republican voted against. So Democrats have quite a lot of policy. They just have trouble messaging on it. And so the fact that these Republicans are saying she doesn't have policy, of course she has policy. She's, you know, she was an attorney general, vice president, member of the United States Senate. If nothing else, she has policy. And this admin is so policy heavy. But I think what's happened is that since the first time since Obama, Democrats are able to project a sort of message that isn't, that is just sort of the gestalt of all this policy put together.
Lindsay, I want to point this out because I actually think this is key. I want to play you some sound about Trump talking about the economy and then get your thoughts on the other side, because there's a policy element to this that I think is being missed.
They say it's the most important subject. I think crime is right there. I think the border is right there, personally. We have a lot of important subjects because our country has become a third world nation. They say it's the most important subject. I'm not sure it is, but they say it's the most important.
Alyncia, what I'm noticing here is that Harris seems to have threaded this needle where she's inheriting the improved economy from Biden. She's inheriting, some of the bigger policy initiatives, the infrastructure reduction, all these sorts of things from Biden, but is being given the benefit of the doubt by the voters to part with him and move in different directions on his unpopular policies. How's she been so effective at doing that in a campaign that, again, is less than a month old?
Listen, it's a very unique position that, quite frankly, we have never seen in our politics before. Right. And it actually works in her favor this go around versus her primary race in 2020. And it's also, this is a culmination of not only the American people getting used to seeing her in this high position. We have the American people who have already gone through a President Trump administration. They've gone through a pandemic. They have gone through overturning Roe v. Wade, affirmative action, attacks on queer and trans kids. The list goes on and on and on. And so the Republican Party has forgotten that the American people is actually paying attention. People are going back to work. They're paying attention to how the economy is now starting to really work for them, right? Like policy is starting to become what they are feeling in their kitchen table conversations. And so it is a unique moment for her to be in. And if she's not clear on the message, I think picking Governor Walz as her number 2 is very clear on messaging when it comes to a lot of these issues. I mean, he's talking in such simple terms that as someone who's worked in communications for the Democratic Party my entire career, he's actually nailed down a message in a way that our party has sometimes had trouble doing so. And so there's the benefit of the doubt here that is really penetrating. And we, have less than 100 days. And so we can only go up from here. It's our race to lose at this point.